Unmute. Good morning, everyone. It is a privilege to welcome you all to CyberSafe Now UAE webinar, organized by Q&A. My name is Anita Joseph, editor and conference producer, and I'll be your MC for today. As we gather here from diverse locations, experiences, and professional fields, one thing unites us. We are all connected. Connected not just through technology, but through a shared commitment to the safety, strength, and future of the UAE. In times of uncertainty, it is this unity and solidarity that defines us, reflecting our resilience, our support for one another, and our deep love for the land we are proud to call home. Today, as remote and hybrid work and education have become part of our daily lives, cyber threats are no longer isolated or simple. They're increasingly sophisticated, highly targeted, and spread across industries with precision. The evolving landscape challenges us all, making conversations like today's not just important, but essential. We are here not only to discuss these challenges, but also to exchange ideas, explore solutions, and learn from some of the leading voices in the field. Together, we aim to find a way forward that strengthens our collective cyber resilience. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the UAE Cybersecurity Council for supporting this initiative, as well as our sponsors, headline partner Cohesity, supporting partners CISDIG and Delinea. Without their support, this event would not have been possible. Please join me now for the national anthem. We will now begin with a very special keynote address by His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Al Kuwaiti, Head of Cybersecurity, UAE Cybersecurity Council. He will share his insights on how the UAE continues to lead the way in cybersecurity and technology, ensuring a safe and secure cyberspace. Welcome, Your Excellency. Welcome, Your Excellency. Okay. All right. I think there is a delay. His Excellency is not with us right now. So we will proceed to the panel discussion now on securing the future, cyber resilience across industries. After the panel discussion, we will have a 5-minute Q&A session for the attendees. So while the discussion is on, kindly type in your questions in the Q&A box for the panel members. So the panel discussion today is bringing together experts from across sectors to explore how organizations can strengthen their defenses in an increasingly complex digital landscape. As cyber threats continue to evolve, this discussion will highlight the importance of collaboration, adaptability, and proactive strategies to build resilience and safeguard the future across industries. Our esteemed panelists for today include Colonel Dr. Hamad Khalifa, Head of Telecom Division, Infrastructure Department, ICT Center, Abu Dhabi Police HQ. Hadi Anwar, CEO, CPX. Anwar Alris, Middle East Lead, Cloud Security Strategy, CISDEC. Shafiullah Ismail, Vice President and Head, Information Security and Risk, Mupadla Capital. Ayman Hamoudeh, Senior Director, Sales Engineering, International Market, Cohesity. Tushar Vartak, EVP and Head, Information, Cybersecurity and Fraud Prevention, Rackbank. And Murtada Ayad, VP Sales, Delinea. Welcome, gentlemen. Such an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
To kick off,
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, sir. To kick off the discussion, I'd like to start with a broad question for the panel. Given how AI is changing both sides of the battlefield, attackers and defenders, where do you see the biggest near-term impact? Dr. Hamad, do you want to take this question first?
Sure. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome everybody. It's our pleasure to be here in cyber world. Then we are not having a virtual, participation face-to-face event regarding the situation, but many thanks for Q&A to organizing such an event that we need to get unite as what the government said, one family, one nation in all time. Regarding your questions, Anita, you were talking about the AI and
Yes.
how does that affect cybersecurity world at the moment. I guess we are having a challenge on understanding what is the main reason of AI in our environment and ecosystem at the moment. But unfortunately, as what was happening lately, we have been seeing the AI has been used in a bad way and more threatening people's life, services, government procedures, and all these processes that we are dealing with every single day. So it's, the main concept is how do we actually deal with the AI as a technology to enhance, develop our life cycle and our daily life routine. This is the main questions. It's always going to be a challenge. This is my pick, Anita, on AI and cybersecurity.
Absolutely, you're right, because AI is affecting both sides, actually, attack and defense, and it's just growing in magnitude as we speak.
Exactly.
So you raised a very valid point. Murtada, do you want to add to this?
Sure, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, Anita. Thank you very much. Yes, I mean, as my colleague just said, it's really an explosion of AI usage, and the first big impact from an attacker side is the increase of highly targeted, automated, and scalable attacks. But from a defender side, what we've seen recently is the explosion of AI identities in organization, right? We estimate today that in terms of machine identity and AI combined together, we have a ratio of around 1 to 40 compared to human identity. And those identities, you know, they will not complain about having too many permissions, right? If you bring this example to real life, I would imagine that you're sitting in your office and then you have hundreds of people just walking by you, passing by you, but nobody knows who they are, what they're here, if they're supposed to be here, but they're just there, right? So that's the challenge we are facing today in terms of this explosion of identity, and I would say probably the biggest impact would be the effort it will take to govern these properly and make sure that, you know, everybody knows what permission they have and what they can do.
Right. Ayman, can you add to this, please? Because Murtada raised a very valid point. So would you like to add to this?
No, absolutely, and pleasure to be here. Look, the way we see this is that AI on the attacker side and on the defense sides are moving in a symmetric way. I mean, attackers are using AI to industrialize cyber crime, whether this is faster phishing, automated malware, mutation, automating the commercialization of ransomware as a service. On the other side, defenders, however, are shifting from reactive to proactive / autonomous kind of a response model. But if we look at especially what's happening now in the region and the disruptive in terms of operation, I would say cybersecurity is no longer just about preventing attack. It's about ensuring that you can recover instantly and confidentially when something happens. So we, from the defender side of the game or of the table, we need also not to focus only on how can we utilize AI just to slash costs or how to deploy AI at the edge. Data is the core problem here, and we need to think on how can we utilize AI to recover faster and recover in a confidential and recover in a confidential way as well. So that would be my take on that.
Absolutely, I think you're right. AI should be AI is everywhere, but how we use it is the question, I think. So that's a very valid point. Hadi, do you want to add to this?
Sure, Anita. Thank you for that. And I'd like to thank Cybersecurity Council, Q&A Marcom for arranging such a great event. Even in this situation, we are not cybersecurity, right? This is extremely important. And also very happy to share the stage with such distinguished colleagues of ours. So AI, in my view, is fundamentally reshaping both sides, which is the attackers and defenders at the same time. On the attackers side, Anita, what we see is that the AI agents are automating what used to take teams of people days and weeks, right? Reconnaissance, vulnerability delivery, highly targeted phishing attacks, even lateral movement inside an environment can now be executed much, much faster, more quietly and at a very far bigger scale. And these are no longer like a smash and grab attacks. They are modular, persistent intrusions designed to stay hidden, and they also prioritize high value data and maintain in their environments long-term access. And on the defender side, we are seeing a necessary shift as well. Security operations, especially the SOC monitoring, are becoming AI powered by default, machine learning driven threat hunting, autonomous response. They're no longer nice to have. We have to have them inbuilt these days, and they're essential just to keep, with the pace. In my humble opinion, AI is very much a double-edged sword. The same capabilities that help attackers move faster also defenders to dramatically improve anomaly detection, exposure management, and real-time risk scoring across very complex and distributed environments. We recognize this early. We have already invested in AI-enabled cyber defense across detection, correlation, and response. And our priority is making sure that defenders can match both the speed and the scale of AI-driven threats, not next year, but now. So I'll take a pause now.
Absolutely. I think that's a very valid point. It's a double-edged sword. So the pace at which the attacks are happening, it's up to the attackers to, the defenders to, keep pace, speed, and the quality, I think, of the defense. I think that's a very valid point. Anwar, do you want to add to this?
Absolutely, Anita. Thank you for organizing the event, and thanks for the generous sponsorship from the Cybersecurity Council. Just to read the question to the audience, asking about how AI changing both sides of the battlefield. So AI is having a major impact on both attackers and defenders. And on the attacker side, as my esteemed panelists shared, it's being used to scale and accelerate attacks. Things like more convincing phishing, faster recurrences, and more adaptive malware. So it's always also come with lower. They lower the barrier to entry, let's say. More attackers can launch sophisticated attacks. On the defender side, AI help process large amount of data and improve detection. and also reduce alert fatigue that many teams complain from by prioritizing what's really matters. So the biggest near-term impact here is the speed. Attackers are using the AI to make attacks happen so fast, and organization need to detect and respond even faster as well. So the key challenge becomes like signals versus noise, I would say, and having the right context and the right tool to focus on real threats.
Okay. Before we take the next question, His Excellency is here, so I think we'll just cut this right now. We'll go back to the keynote, and once His Excellency is done, we'll be back. Sorry for that, but welcome, Your Excellency. We're waiting to hear from you.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for this, again, a great event with all of the things happening across us, and that's actually the solidarity, that's the standing up together, that's what we are really working on ensuring is actually the business continuity as normal. I really appreciate all of the efforts, all of the enthusiasm, all of the aspirational teams who are actually really working with us in that perspective. So again, my appreciation and real honor to be with you all in that regards. I will give me 2 minutes, please. I will give you what's happening in general, and I'm sure I've heard some of those discussion points as well in this perspective. First of all, UAE is strong. UAE is continuing what is actually already planned for. UAE is moving towards an AI nation, alhamdulillah, as per the vision of the leadership, as well as per the vision of 2031, we, the UAE vision under the cabinet. Many of things, alhamdulillah, have set forward a great, actually, lessons learned from this events or crisis happening around us in the region, as well as impacting us mainly directly in many of those ways. In the cyber domain, definitely UAE have faced so many, mashallah, yani, things or lessons that we are actually really proud of having the resiliency to continue on. Those lessons never become, alhamdulillah, clearer to us nowadays in all of those things happening across us. And one really point that shines across all of those is the partnership. We saw the importance of that partnership with everybody, as a matter of fact, on this, with our private, government, international, local, NGOs, you name it, any of those aspects. And this is, as a matter of fact, cementing many of the things we always say about public-private people partnership. Not only we saw the people who are actually really becoming that first line of defense when we ask to really be aware of all of those deep fake, of all of those, alhamdulillah, things that we see across many of our social media, where they are the one who report it, they are the one who know and debunk it and work with us in many of those aspects, but also to our private sector, who are actually really working with us in uplifting and hardening their, alhamdulillah, cyber security postures with many of the things that we have set forward previously on the national as well as international standard and policies. So all of this is the testimonial that, alhamdulillah, everybody is under the same roof. Everybody is working together to ensure that business continuity, resiliency in a safe and secure ways. Attacks, yes, if I may say a couple of words about attacks, we saw it all, and we're still seeing it more and more. From as simple as what we used to speak about, phishing or DDoS or even ransomware, all the way to the different sophisticated wipers or espionage campaigns that are actually happening across us, or even to the APTs that are actually really now turning and shifting from as simple as a cyber crime goal all the way to a cyber warfare weapon. And many of those who are behind this, be it state or non-state actors. And yes, there are state and non-state actors in that perspective, and be it, alhamdulillah, with an intention of different goals that we verified, and we, alhamdulillah, with the great team, have been able to really identify and makes us stronger. And that's the leadership, basically, a statement. All of this are making us, and we are becoming, mashallah, alhamdulillah, with everybody, more resilient, more stronger, and more, alhamdulillah, solid in many of those things that we are actually working on. I'm sure you've heard and seen leaks here and there, or things that are actually happening, but we can assure you many of those is campaigns to, as a matter of fact, lure the people or trick them in that aspects. Many of these were old leaks, old things that they want to actually use the conflict now to resell or actually attack or build into their whatever aspects that they're actually working on. Yes, there are some actual attacks, like, alhamdulillah, from the government as well as from many of the private sectors. Many of those have been, alhamdulillah, not only detected but even responded in that perspective with the great solutions that we have. We've seen AI plays a big role, as a matter of fact, as simple as, again, drafting that phishing email, all the way to really designing and using some of those chat or warm GPTs and things that we actually have seen across many of the things that we have. Again, UAE is strong with its people, UAE is strong with its great partners, UAE is, alhamdulillah, continuing to be strong and resilient in many of those aspects. My message to you all is to stand up together always. Really work with everybody in that perspective, and again, spread the word of cybersecurity and the awareness and the importance of really having those simple postures, simple steps that you can take, but protects you from, God forbid, a devastated type of wiping aspects that could cost this or that here or there, or even investing in having a DR, like what we've heard, some of the data centers from our partners being actually affected or impacted. Like, alhamdulillah, everything went back with the great, again, framework that we have, with the great resiliency and the sovereignties that we already actually working on with everybody in that perspective, and that what shows that solidarity and that resiliency in the face of many of those attacks. I thank you again, an honor to be with you all. Inshallah, next time we see you all physically and work with you, bi'idhnillah, in that perspective. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, thank you for the wonderful insights and for reiterating how strong the UAE is, and the solidarity of everyone who calls it home. Now, the UAE, we all know, is recognized as a digital first nation. How would you describe the country's strategic positioning when it comes to securing its digital infrastructure in the current situation?
Well, as UAE have set many of those steps, as a matter of fact, before the event itself. And I'm sure you've heard us speaking about so many of those points even before such crisis happened. We always push for governance. We always push for protecting and defending. We always push for capacity building and drills. We conducted so many drills in a pace of about one drill every week, almost, with so many things and so many sectors and so many. So all of this really have raised our, alhamdulillah, preparedness and readiness of many of those aspects. And that where it was, I won't say the usual day that we actually do, but actually an increased, alhamdulillah, awareness and increased work with everybody. And again, thanks to many of our partners, be it local, national, alhamdulillah, strategic partners who've been and standing up in many of these aspects, or even international partners who've been as well standing up in many of those things. I get so many calls, and even not only calls, actually actions. They went to implement endpoint security in one of those entities without even asking for a penny. They went to implement, mashallah, a whole disaster recovery and readiness of a disaster, alhamdulillah, data center that has so many of those, alhamdulillah, costs. They didn't even ask for a penny. So many of them, they came and saying, forget about what contractual and many of those, let's do it. Let's show that we are standing together and that we are, alhamdulillah, working in that perspective. And that's what we saw. Alhamdulillah, really now we are, alhamdulillah, in a great position with everybody, and that business continuity, alhamdulillah, continuing as normal. And again, that's what our message to everybody is, definitely preparedness and the readiness that we've been doing really shows off and pays off now in that perspective.
Absolutely, a testament to the strength and the solidarity of the people. Your Excellency, the UAE is also investing in cyber awareness for students and remote workers. Now, how would you describe this, or how important is this dimension?
Definitely very, very, very important. Alhamdulillah, first of all, going to online education, online work. It's again a normal things here, alhamdulillah, in UAE with the blessed, again, the vision of the leadership, the readiness of the infrastructure, the awareness of everybody. But what we ask for now, and in some of the campaigns we did for awareness, is to really be careful of many of the things that are could really disrupt any of this online studying or working or doing business in that perspective. That includes many of phishing or even tricking, social engineering our, again, basically people, as well as really be careful from those deep fake or deep voice or any of the things that you see in the social media, where it's actually become a platform of misinformation and disinformation, and not even seeking the real accredited authorization from the entities here who are actually really working hard in order to send the message of, alhamdulillah, comfort, send the message of resiliency, the strength. Well, that's what we've seen. So again, our message always to those, alhamdulillah, be it student, be it community, our first of line of defense is the awareness. Awareness is still first line of protection, and we need them always to be really aware of what's or who is actually trying to trick them in that perspective.
Absolutely. And it's remarkable how the UAE is at the forefront of creating awareness and letting the people know the need to be alert and vigilant, particularly at this time. Your Excellency, looking ahead, what are the biggest cybersecurity challenges and opportunities that you see in the UAE today?
So definitely there is the AI. AI
Right.
is really now, instead of we're looking for state or non-state actors, we're looking for agents, red team agents, who are actually attacking or trying to actually penetrate or exploit any of those vulnerabilities. These agents are sophisticated, learned, they don't get tired, they know what they look for. They've been actually learning in an agentic way what are the mistakes that they fall in and how they actually really manage to overcome many of those mistakes. So definitely AI from a technological perspective is adding in that, but alhamdulillah on the opposite side, the blue teaming, the cyber defense, the alhamdulillah AI that is used on that even bigger, or that we've seen so many alhamdulillah solutions that really worked perfectly in deterring many of those, again, AI attacks in that perspective. But with the sophistication and the continuous sophistications that comes, definitely this will be one of the, I won't say challenges, but one of the opportunities that we need to take it further and really design countering such things that could actually come in that perspective. And then comes definitely the people. Social engineering is still a way of actually getting into any of those attacks. Yes, maybe lowered from that 70% or even 60% of all attacks happening is because of social engineering, and because of many of those, again, really not putting the right configuration or the right, alhamdulillah, setting in that perspective. So it's very important now to raise those awareness of the teams who are actually really firsthand working with those technologies and knowing how they actually need to set up or configure or really use that framework, zero trust, with the least privileges, with assuming attacks. Many of this is still valid, still very important to us. And the third thing is the SOC, the importance of having a real SOC with incident response, with alhamdulillah, again, many of those features that we've seen becomes so handy in that aspect with the responding to any of those attacks or working with, again, partners to investigate any of those attacks, to recover back into the normal framework. So without having that team who really will take you in that perspective, it's really a challenge. So prepare from now. Make sure you have all of those aspects. And alhamdulillah, there are so many great partners. I'm sure you have there already in your panels who are working hard in that perspective.
Your Excellency, you've highlighted some very important aspects, the strength of the people, the need to be prepared, and the need to be aware. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. That was a really insightful speech as well as conversation that we had. Thank you so much for safeguarding the cyberspace of the UAE. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good luck, and inshallah, we'll see you next time physically. Bi'idhnillah.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, Your Excellency. Thank you so
Take
much.
care. Thank you, everybody.
Take
Thank you.
care. Bye. So we'll go back to the panel now that His Excellency has made his speech. We will take up the next question. We discussed the importance of AI, or how the AI is a double-edged sword when it comes to the cyber attack and defense space. Now, let's talk about how cyber threats are evolving differently across regions and sectors. What overlooked risks should organizations be paying more attention to today? Shafi, would you like to take this up first?
Yep, sure.
Yep.
So I'm just turning on my camera. Just a second.
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the invite, and it's always a privilege to be part of this panel. Talking about the threat evolving, in my personal view, what I see is cyber threats are fragmented by region and sectors and industries, because what
Right.
threat comes to the energy is different from what financial sectors are being getting
Right.
it. So what we are seeing more is like more of a state-linked, actually, in our geopolitical sensitive regions, while sectors like finance, energy, healthcare are being targeted for both disruption and data, right? Because they want to exploit the data. So regulations and digital maturity levels are really shaping the very different risk profile for each and every organization. That's very important. In my view, the overlooked risk are in between the layers, where we need to focus is on the supply chain, the third-party vendors, of course, the data, and data which is on the third-party cloud. And the most crown jewel is the identity. Okay, because a lot of workforces are on the workloads are on the cloud. So identity plays a vital part there. So most breaches today don't start with a direct attack on the core systems. So what they're doing is they're planting it on the weakest chain, predominantly on the user side. So in my view, what I'm seeing is, the organization should be cyber aware. Cyber culture should be very strong. Continuous monitoring has to be, it should be evolving. It shouldn't be like a one-time exercise. So that's something which we need to focus in the evolving threats, cyber threats.
Right. Hadi, do you want to add to this?
Yeah, I would second what Shafi just mentioned about the adversaries picking up on the weakest link. And cyber threats today are evolving, and they're evolving quite differently across different regions and sectors, largely because of geopolitics, which is now shaping the cyber landscape. We are seeing cyber and physical risks converge, impacting cloud regions, identity services, and critical digital platforms in ways we did not see a few years ago. One major shift is the rise of supply chain attacks. And adversaries are targeting shared platforms, IT providers, and trusted third parties as a way to move quickly across interconnected environments. Critical infrastructure, in our view, remains a prime target, especially through ransomware, destructive malware, and direct attacks on perimeter and edge devices. At the same time, phishing and credential theft continue to rise, with more sophisticated attacks amplified by AI and abuse of trusted cloud workflows. Finally, resilience today is less about perfect prevention and more about response. In our view, digital forensics and incident response readiness is critical. It's absolutely critical for everybody to have IR coverage in their SOC ecosystem. This is what differentiates organizations. The ability to detect quickly, contain effectively, and recover fast is now the key factor determining real world impact.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's right. I think both of you encapsulated it very well. Now we've talked about cyber threats evolving, and we've talked about AI. Now let's take a look at how what cyber resilience looks like in practice. I mean, it's all very well to talk about it in theory, but what does it look like in practice beyond buzzwords, and how can organizations realistically measure it? Anwar, do you want to take this up?
Sure, thank you. That's a great question. So cyber resilience is very important. And in simple terms, as you said, beyond buzzwords, it's just the ability to continue operating even during an attack. So it's not just about prevention, although it's important, but it's also about being able to detect, respond, and recover continuously. So in practice, this means the security need to be embedded across the life cycle, the full life cycle, from build, deploy to runtime. And it also means breaking silos, security, operations, engineering teams need to work together. They should not be like working in a separate or breaking silos. Resilience or a resilient organization has continuous visibility. They can detect and respond quickly and can maintain operation even if part of the system is compromised. So this is also another aspect of it. In terms of measurement, it's important to stay practical. So key metrics would include how fast would you detect issues or incidents, and how fast would you respond to them. Just echoing my esteemed panelists here, it's prevention is very important, but responding is becoming more and more important. And how effectively you can recover. So you can also look at how well risks are prioritized based on real business impact, and how often you successfully recover from those, maybe using some simulated incident, etc. So overall, resilience is about speed, visibility, and the ability to adapt under pressure.
Absolutely. I think you raised a valid point there about responding. It's not just about reacting to it or figuring it. It's also about responding to it, and it's not just about prevention, right? We're talking about reacting to it, responding to it, and preventing it. So I think that's where the crux of the whole thing is. Ayman, do you want to take this up as well and add to what Anwar said?
Sure. I mean, look, if I had to define cyber resilience, I would say it's the ability to slow down adversaries so that they are detectable, and also the ability to recover faster. So we always should be looking at cyber resilience not as a prevention control. So cyber resilience is not a prevention. It's your business continuity under attack. So organizations and governments and everyone, for a security practitioner, should be treating cyber resilience as a business continuity, especially under attack. Recovery isn't tested. It's not a capability. It's not a control. It's not a theory. It's something that you need to test, that you need to rehearse. So resilience, from my perspective, is protection, detection, recovery, practice, and then overall risk exposure or risk feasibility to know where your risk is.
Absolutely. Murtada, do you want to add to this, or is there something that you want to talk about?
Absolutely. So yes, as my colleague said, I mean, resilience is all about having the proper methodology in place to make sure that if something bad happens, you are, you are ready, basically, right? And I believe as well, this comes from having the best visibility you can get within, all the different pillars of your infrastructure, of your business, your activity, so that when an incident or something that, in the best case you've planned for is happening, you can react the best way. So in my perspective is always making sure that you reduce your attack surface to the smallest one, so that you
Right.
can minimize the impact as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, Now, let's talk about security architectures. What security architectures or framework, let's say, like Zero Trust or SASE, are proving most effective in real world deployments, and where are they falling short? How did you want to take this up?
Sure, absolutely. In real-world deployments, Anita, a few security architectures clearly stand out, but not only when they are implemented with intent, not just for buzzwords.
Right.
And Zero Trust, in my view, is a good example when it is treated as a continuous identity-centric program. It works very well. And strong authentication, least privilege access, continuous monitoring significantly reduce attacker freedom. Where it falls
Right.
short when organizations treat Zero Trust as a checklist only. And gaps in governance and monitoring are still the fastest way attackers move through different environments.
Right. Right.
Micro-segmentation has also proven effective, especially in complex or hybrid environments. For industrial and operational environments, frameworks like IEC 62443 are particularly effective. What makes a real difference there is embedding security early during system
Right.
design and engineering rather than bolting it on later. And that life-based approach is critical for OT security as well. At
Right.
a national level standards, we have seen UAE UAE Information Assurance Standard, also known as UAE, have raised line maturity and improved consistency across different sectors, which is absolutely essential when you are securing shared national infrastructure. On the connectivity side, SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, works well for distributed workforces and modern enterprise IT. And finally, one of the biggest shortcomings we still see is over-reliance on a single cloud provider or limited available zones. Architectures that depend on shared control planes tend to fall during systemic disruptions. And this
Right.
is why I feel like the most common lesson learned is simple frameworks matter, but execution matters much more. The difference between success and failure is always how these architecture are applied in real world
Right.
environment, not just as buzzwords or tick in the box exercise.
Yeah, I think that's where the key differentiator is. Buzzword or talking about it, theory is one thing, but actually how you actually implement is what makes all the difference. Shafi, do you want to add to this?
Sure, Anita. Just to add to Hadi's
Mm.
insight on this point,
Yeah.
in my opinion, I could see Zero Trust is effective where it's implemented as a continuous model, okay, and it works very well when it's a cloud architecture because it's mainly bound towards the strong identity, device posture, and least
Right.
privileges across the organization.
Mm, mm,
It helps reduce the lateral movement. Why? Because it's because of the cloud footprint and also limit, blast radius. SASE is working well for a distributed architecture where there is more services published, where people from outside come and access these services. Yes, SASE is working well on those distributed workforces, and it simplifies the secure access as well as improving the visibility across users and apps. So that's the major difference between the Zero Trust as well as the SASE, the applications of, sorry, the applicability of the architecture. Uh, where they fall short is the execution because each one has its own drawbacks. So many organizations they treat Zero Trust as a product. It should be seen as a core entity which should be embedded as part of the ecosystem. Okay, and
right.
SASE can introduce complexity or performance trade-off if it is not well integrated with the underlying platforms. Yeah, so basically, both technology has to be properly stitched with various layer of security defenses.
Right. Now, Tushar, this one is for you, particularly in the context of banks. Now, with fraud tactics becoming more sophisticated and targeted, what do you think are some of the most effective strategies that organizations can implement to prevent digital fraud while maintaining seamless customer experiences?
So thanks, Anika, for having me. It's indeed a pleasure sharing this virtual stage with esteemed panelists. When we look at frauds, there are a lot of most of the frauds is opportunistic. A country is hosting FIFA World Cup, and you will see phishing mails or impersonation mails that are going quoting that particular event, and there is no dearth of such significant events as we speak at this point in time, right? So fraudsters are aware of this fact, and they are also using the same tactics to fool people, get their credentials for banking credentials or any other credentials and to conduct fraud. Now, in terms of controls, it is really important to look at things like behavioral biometrics, and I'll try to explain this with an example. Say you have your username and password. So, say my password, for example, is Tushar TUSHAR. Today, organizations have the capability and the solutions that can literally measure when I type Tushar, what is the flight time between T and U? When I'm pressing T on my keyboard, how hard do I press? What angle do I hold my mobile phone when I type that? What is the location that this information is coming to me from? A lot of this information is available through specialized solutions to organizations. So that is collectively called behavioral biometrics. So I have, of course, my username and password. Most organizations also have two-factor authentication in terms of your OTPs that are being sent. And the third thing is behavioral biometrics. So when we talk about multi-factor authentication, the first factor becomes what you know, that is your username and password. Second factor is what you have, that is your mobile device, where either the soft token is there or an SMS OTP is getting delivered. And the third factor is always who you are and how do you determine who you are. That is through behavioral biometric. So you can get my username and password. The fraudster sometimes can also get your OTP through a social engineering kind of an attempt. But even after having that password, he cannot type it like you do. He cannot have the same angle of the mobile that you hold when you type the password. So that actually goes into what we call a risk engine. So every interaction with a platform, organizations can integrate products that do this. It goes to a risk engine, and it is going to compute a risk score for everything. That okay, this interaction is low risk because I know that the user always types his password like this. He always logs in from UAE. He always logs in from different parts of the world, which we already know about. And then you have to mature it to risk-based authentication. So I also have a behavioral profile. I have my credentials, and I also have a transaction profile, which tells me that historically I do transfer this amount of money to this individual entity, this part of the world. So if there is a deviation, naturally the risk score goes up, and then you can challenge that particular thing instead of challenging every single user with a two-factor authentication. So if you know that the user is same, the behavior profile is same, you know that the transaction profile is same, then there is no need to cause more friction in this user journey, and you can happily allow the user to transact without confidence. At the same point in time, if it's a high risk kind of a thing, you may want to uh, either do a call back to the user, ask him to do some level of additional authentication, or if you are 100% certain that all parameters are not matching, you can even drop that transaction. So those are some of the strategies that are available through products and through some clever intertwining of the data that are available to the organizations. I will also include one more point before I conclude that as one entity, you get to see a small pie of customers, that your customers and their behavior. But what the UAE does, and I think His Excellency hinted to this fact as well, Hadi tried to cover it in his answers, that there is a very active cybersecurity community in the UAE. So we do pick up phones on each other. We share threat intelligence. So if there is a specific kind of attack that is happening, then everybody immediately knows central bank has provided a platform for doing this exactly. So those kind of intelligence is available that is woven into your security sentinels so that you can use that intelligence very quickly and protect customers as well.
Absolutely. Murtada, this is again your area of expertise. Do you want to comment on this?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Tushar already gave a fantastic answer on this, and I would just add one thing to it is that I mean there are some misconceptions around fraud prevention, and one of them is that stronger security will create more friction, and actually the reality is that the most effective strategy will actually do the opposite. They will reduce the friction so that we have a better intelligent, control of the access. But as you heard it from Tushar, everything we have in place today is to confirm the identity of the person we are interacting with, right? So the starting point will always be identity, right? And the best strategy will always be identity driven, right? Whether it is for credential theft, I mean, in terms of attacks or session hijacking or abuse of privilege, it will always come down to, having continuous verification, not only at one time. You can have the best, authentication mechanism in place to confirm the identity of a user. As Tushar said, there are some tools that go even further into the behavior of that user, but that check of the identity should be continuous, right? It should be also risk driven, right? You have to make sure that based on certain types of access, you will apply less control if the access are not as sensitive as others, right? And that decision process should be dynamic because you want to put some conditions to it. And finally, once we talk and validate the identity of the users, even in that still perspective, we need to be able to control what these users can do, right? Have a view on their permission, their access, their privileges, as we call them. Make sure that those privileges are not standing. They're just not always there. They are given when needed and only for the time that is needed and only for the task that is required. And that goes a bit beyond just simple consumers. It goes to powerful users or administrators and people who have deeper access than the standard users, but it's still important. And all of that would be nothing if you don't have visibility. You cannot monitor or control what you don't see, to be specific. So I think as a conclusion for me is the balance really comes from being more precise than restrictive if you want to have a strong cyber strategy to prevent fraud.
Anita, I would like to add something on cyber resilience that
Yes,
I guess His Excellency mentioned it, and all of my dear panelists were talking more into technical aspects. I guess he mentioned that the awareness and the people are the first line of resilience. And this is when we are talking the cyber risk comes first, not into our technologies, not into whatever operation that we do have, into our people, the human behavior. And this is where we need to focus mainly. All these initiatives, all these awareness, all these campaigns that has been done by the law enforcement as well as by the Cybersecurity Council, it's targeted the people themselves, not whatever technologies that we are using. Yes, the technology is part of it, but the main focus and the main target has to be the human behavior and the human interact with all these threats.
I think you have a very valid point there, sir, because the person or the people are the first line of defense, I think. And unless the people are aware, nothing works, right?
True.
Anita, and if you allow me, I echo
Sure, sure,
what was said here. And if
Yeah.
I just add my two folds here, I mean,
Sure.
it was rightfully put by His Excellency that awareness is the key element here, but we need also to treat awareness in a different behavioral in the different behavioral subject, because
Right.
we now live in a world where human to human are no longer the conversation. So we have machine to machine conversation, we have agent to agent conversation. So our awareness also should shift to adapt to the age that we live in. So that would be my first fault. The second one is that, as I mentioned, that we are living in a world that where human to human are no longer the conversation. We have machine to machine, agents to agents. So we need also to tie all of this in terms of identity, data, behavioral anomalies, detections, outlier to get to that core for fraud prevention. So it's not an identity problem. It's not a data problem. It's not an infrastructure problem. It's not a human problem. But we need to correlate all of this to be able to adapt to the new era of fraud prevention.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that is a very valid point there. Now, talking of fraud tactics, let's get back to the AI factor there. I mean, what are the main risks of autonomous AI systems beyond fraud, and how do you think organizations can manage them effectively? And what can you answer this?
Sure, thank you, Anita. So beyond fraud, using AI or autonomous AI to introduce three main risks. First, the lose of control. System can act this as my dear panelist was saying, talking to each other. They can act at this and the scale that hard to supervise sometimes, which issues and issues can escalate quickly. And secondly is the loss of visibility. So loss of control, lack of visibility. Organizations often don't fully understand what the AI is doing in real time, which create security and compliance challenges. And third, if we add to the loss of control and lack of visibility, is the new attack surface that attackers can now target the AI itself, using AI itself and target AI itself through data, through models, through APIs. So to manage this, organizations should focus on three things. They should have clear governance and boundaries. They should have a strong visibility across the environment and continuous monitoring and response. So the goal is not actually to slow down the AI adoption, but to make sure it is controlled and secured. This is the philosophy and how to use it.
Right. Tushar, do you want to take this up again? I mean, this is your area as well.
Sure. So everybody is using AI. I have a 7-year-old, and the other day, he asked me how many moons Saturn has, and I actually had no answer. So he went to ChatGPT and found it out himself. So everybody is smarter with AI. Everybody is faster with AI. So sometimes I think, as the panelists have covered, it's definitely a double-edged sword. But the agentic part of it, so what do we call agency? So what it is important to understand what is agency. What do we mean by agency? So in a natural course, when we use tools like ChatGPT, you ask a question and answer comes back. That's like a tennis match. You hit from the side, the ball comes back to you. The agents are generally given an objective without telling them how to achieve that objective, and they are free to, take their own decisions, do their own actions, and agency is the problem. That is where, whenever you talk to people who try to implement agentic systems, they will talk about human in the loop part, where how much access are you granting to the agent? I think Ayman mentioned this during his initial thing. If you look at a typical modern organization, the ratio of human identities to agents is 1:40. So you literally have 40 agents running autonomously. And how do we look at what the agents are doing. You have given them an objective, you don't know what path are they. Do you have audit trails to track what the agent is doing? What level of access is allocated to the agent? When you give an administrator, technology administrator access to the server, you say, okay, this person needs to enter his username and password, and he needs to use a two-factor authentication to access this server. How about two-factor authentication for the agent? What level of access are you, giving to that agent? When you literally talk about an human actor, every staff that is working in an organization undergoes an access review. Okay, every quarter you say that this person has this level of access. Does he continue to need that access? When the person leaves, you revoke his access. How do you do that for agents? Right? If you have 40 agents per one human running inside your organization, how do you know which agent is doing what? When do you do access review? So those are the kind of things that are really, really topical when you look at agentic thing, because speed cuts both ways. Speed will
Right.
reduce time for you to perform an action. Speed will reduce cost for you to perform an action in an organization, and it will do exactly the same for an attacker as well.
Absolutely. Dr. Hamad, is this something that you would want to comment on? Because AI and, I mean, UAE is at the forefront of AI usage. So do you want to comment on this? Dr. Hamad, are you there? Okay. All right, we'll then take up the next question. This is everyone's favorite question. This is my favorite question as well. As organizations adopt more next-gen technologies, how do you think they can avoid introducing new vulnerabilities while scaling innovation? We'll take up one. Everyone would love to comment on this, I know, so we'll go one after the other. Mortada, do you want to start?
Sure. This is a great question. You're absolutely, and I think the challenge when it comes to innovation is, I mean, you want to move as fast as possible because you don't want to be left behind, right? And this involve an element of speed, I would say, to be able to keep up with that innovation. But and then of course, what I would say is that the risk becomes a byproduct of that speed, right? So if you want to be,
Right.
if you want to really innovate at the scale of, I mean, and scale at the same time, you have somehow to move fast. But we need to find a way for that scaling to be secure. And I think the first important step is to embed security in the foundation of that scaling, right? And not being a layer on top of it, right? Not adding extra capability, extra tool, and then think about how you secure them. Is doing it from the beginning. And as organization scale today massively, I said it at the beginning, there is an explosion of the number of AI identity or machine identity, and my colleagues also said that now today machine are talking to machine and not human anymore. So the first priority I would say in that secure, I would say, innovation is to prioritize and standardize the identity controls, right? Having the same level of control across all identity, across all the organization from wherever they access it. So that's going to be very important. And the second, if you want to scale, you're going to have to automate, but you will have to automate with guardrails. You cannot just do it by enabling these automations without securing them properly, because the innovation, as I said, requires you to move fast, and that speed must be paired with policy-driven controls. And finally, visibility. I said you cannot secure what you cannot see, so you need real-time insight on what's happening, who's accessing what, and why they're doing it, of course. So I believe if you have these three pillars, like identity-centric approach, automation with governance, and full visibility, security and innovation, they're no longer in conflict, right? Because the ultimate goal is not to slow down innovation, it's to make it safer.
Absolutely. Hadi, do you want to add to this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is one of the biggest challenges organizations are facing today. How do you move fast enough with next gen technologies without opening gaps at the same time? And the starting point for me is security by design. We've been talking about this for a very, very long time. Let's start putting security from the word go. Whether we are talking about cloud, AI, OT security, or new engineering platforms, Security has to be embedded from day one. When controls
Right.
are bolted on later on in a project, they almost always introduce complexity, blind spots, and risk. When security is part of the design process, it enables innovation rather than slowing it down. With AI specifically, safe AI practices are becoming essential. This means things like prompt filtering, behavior monitoring, red teaming, strong auditability. AI models and pipelines also need protection from adversarial prompts, data poisoning, and manipulation. Another critical element is continuous validation. As organizations adopt new technologies, they need to regularly test assumptions through attack simulations, updated business impact assessments, and cloud failover testing. Innovation often moves faster than security unless it continuously is challenged and validated. The core idea is simple. Innovation and security are not opposing forces, they complement each other. When security is built in early and validated, organizations can move fast without creating new risks, in my view. I take a pause now.
Absolutely. Dr. Hamad, do you want to add to this? Dr. Hamad is not here, I
Yes,
think.
I'm
Okay.
with you, Anita. What was
Yes, Dr. Hamad.
do you want me to comment on Hadi's
Yes.
details
No, you
or start
anything. I
from the
mean,
beginning?
yeah, talk. No, you can. I want to hear your point of view on this one.
One more time, if you can give me some the questions again. We are
Yeah,
talking.
sure. So I was asking, as organizations adopt more next gen technologies,
Yes.
how do you think they can avoid vulnerabilities while scaling innovation?
Okay, so I will go back to Hadi when he's talking about the hierarchy of the organization itself.
Sure.
So new
Yeah.
technology needs new skills, new talent,
Ah,
new people. And as we
right.
are moving into the Generation Z, whom are all about technologies, the life experience, whatever from the history, they have nothing to do with it. It's all
Right.
about technology. So
Right.
I guess as what we have in the government at the moment, we do have the Ministry of AI and Advanced Technology. This is the main business when we are talking about adopting the new technologies into any organization. It's the advanced technology. This is the key point from my perspective when I talking about applying or having a new technologies
Right.
for the future. We have to be ready as what the education, possibly the academia field has to be ready into all these, and we can see this in our domain in United Arab Emirates. There are so many universities at the moment are adopting new courses and new
Right.
subjects such as AI, machine learning, LLM, even we do have the first AI university, which is Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed
Yes.
AI University. That this is we are
Yes.
ready. And as what His Excellency said, we are
Right.
strong. But preparing for the future is the challenges and the vulnerabilities that we do have at the
Right.
moment is what are going to be built toward the future in adopting the new technologies.
Yes, absolutely. Now, we've all talked about the present and what it looks like right now. Let's just move a few steps forward. Looking ahead, let's say 5 to 10 years, what major shifts, technological, geopolitical, or regulatory, will most shape the future of cyber resilience? This is a question I want to ask everyone. So let's start with Ayman. Do you want to comment on this?
Sure. Look, I think the future of cyber resilient in the coming five to 10 years is to embed AI or these disruptive technologies as much as we can and into our day-to-day operation.
Right.
And if we usually I like to stay away from all these buzzwords because today we have AI, tomorrow we have quantic, in 1 month after a year we don't know what we have. So the mindset we need to adopt a breach mindset, and this is the way I like to have this conversation. I mean, always adopting or assuming a breach mindset is always the answer here. So having end-to-end visibility, rehearsal, applying the frameworks across technology, and whenever there's a disruptive technology like AI, so if I go back to the previous question about innovation, so for me or for any organization, innovation does not introduce risk. So AI does not introduce risk. Quantum does not introduce risk. The lack of visibility and lack of controls does. So if we are lacking visibility and we are lacking control, this is where we start introducing risk. So there always have to be that assume breach mindset, the shift left, shift right kind of approach where you need to secure your development and you need to secure the outcomes at the security operations. But most critical, I will always say, you need to unify your data visibility across all environment, because at the end of the day, your data is your crown jewels. And then whatever controls you have at the edge, this is to stop people or adversaries from getting in. But if they do get in, then this is where you need to thinking how do you react, regardless if it's AI, quantum, cloud, or whatever disruptive technology is being introduced to the market. So that would be my take on that.
Unifying or proper visibility is actually really important. Anwar, do you want to add to this?
Sure, Anita. Commenting after the great answer from Ayman. So I completely agree. Those new technologies, they are business enablers, not like introducing new risks. What exactly Ayman is having the right visibility and controls that will help us to adopt and generate benefit from those new technologies. So coming to your question, what major shifts will most shape the future of cyber resilience? Looking ahead, I think we have a few key trends that will shape cybersecurity or cyber resilience. First, I would say cloud adoption, cloud native adoption will become the default. As we saw the first or second wave from on-prem to virtualization, we're seeing now the third wave from virtualization to containerization using cloud native, which is even a highly regulated industry. Second is the data sovereignty. So, and having some regional controls will also become more important. And this is highly driven by regulations and geopolitics. Third is the AI. Will continue to transfer both attackers and defense and their operations. And finally, geopolitical factors will increasingly influence, let's say, the technology decisions, supply chains, and deployment models. So in this environment, the winning organizations, those who will succeed with strong visibility, again, across their systems, so they don't shy away from adopting those disruptive new technologies, but having the right tools to see through them, have the right level of automation and flexibility into their architectures that can quickly adapt to new challenges and to changes.
Yeah, I think you've encapsulated it very well. Murtada, do you want to comment on this?
Sure. I'm not going to repeat what Anwar and Ayman rightfully said. I mean, we of course have the innovation on the AI that's going to empower us. Bishar said it properly. It's making us smarter, and we have all to acknowledge that. And the geopolitical point will of course increase data sovereignty. I 100% agree with that. From a regulation perspective, what I think will happen, that's going to be my take on this, is we're going to see it evolving and shifting not only towards more compliance, but also towards having more accountability. I think the pressure will be increasing on organizations to prove that they have put the right control in place, they have the right visibility, they have the right governance, securing all the identities, all the application, all the infrastructure itself running forward. So I would just to add on the 2 points below, I think, for regulation, we can expect to see more and more accountability driven now regulations and pressure put on the organization to prove that they're implementing those controls properly.
Right, absolutely. Hadi, do you want to take this?
Sure, Anita. You mentioned in your question 5 to 10 years. The world,
Yeah.
the way the world is changing, I think it's difficult to look what's going to happen next year. I mean, leave alone 5 to 10 years. And AI for me, it will be maybe the biggest driver. We are moving toward autonomous agents and AI native systems embedded across society. This brings enormous opportunity, but it also means attackers will use the same capabilities to scale and automate threats. At the same time, IT and OT will continue to converge as we have seen over the past few years. National infrastructure becomes more connected. Cyber and physical risks can no longer be separated. Geopolitically, recent events which we have observed and we live throughout have reinforced the importance of coordinated national defense. Stronger public-private partnerships and shared responsibility becomes even more essential than before. Architecturally, multi-cloud and sovereign resilience will become standard, with organizations planning explicitly for regional failures and systemic disruption. I know regulators have been very strict about keeping data within the country, but we've seen that there have been some flexibilities made during the current disruption. And finally, threats like phishing, ransomware, identity-based attacks will continue to evolve, especially against critical infrastructure. The key takeaway from my perspective is simple. The future of cyber resilience is about system level thinking, national coordination, and the ability to adapt quickly in an uncertain world. So I'll take a pause now and maybe hear from my other colleagues as well.
Yeah, I think the point there is with AI, it's not a question of 5 to 10 years. It's probably a question of 5 to 10 days or 5 to 10 months, like you said, because it's growing so exponentially.
Anita, I would
Yes,
like to
yes,
intervene
sir.
on this.
Yes,
I
sir.
guess it's like the Hollywood movie. It's called The Internship. I guess that Roberto De Niro was applying for a
Yes.
job, and he was like 67 or 75 years old. And then when they made the interview, they were asking him, "Where do you see yourself after 5 to 10 years?" And then he was laughing at that stage of the age, that what he's waiting for to see for the next 5 to 10 years. I guess that would be the same questions when you ask about how do you define or how do you see the cybersecurity and AI within the 5 to 10 years. I guess it's undefined, it's uncertain, because whatever we are having at the moment, we have either to adopt it, to be very changeable, and this is the life cycle changes. It's always part of our human being. And not to add more into my dear panelist, I guess all of them has conclude everything as what the last Hadi talks. Most of the main pillars that related to the Cybersecurity Council, public-private partnership, cloud data centers, and all these initiatives from the government itself. Thank you so much.
Right. Right. I think you have also brought an interesting perspective to all this, Dr. Ahmad.
Yeah.
Shafi
Anita,
will. Sorry, who wants to add to
yeah,
this? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
just quick comment if I may. I want to tail off that comment
Yeah,
from
sure.
Dr. Ahmed.
Yeah.
I mean, we should not be looking at this only from a technology perspective. I mean, look at us today in the security industry. I mean, we're trying to see or drive ROI from AI by slashing costs. So AI now is replacing humans, is augmenting humans, is cutting my cost by dollar value. But we also need to, for our future generation and for the future of cyber resilience, we also need to look at the shift we're gonna do from a workforce perspective. So what would be the roles of the future in the cyber force? So we also need to bring the human element to the technology element, because as we progress and as we introduce more disruptive technology, of course, we need to be introducing new roles as part of the workforce. So this should not have been looked at only from a technology perspective.
No, I think everyone has a valid point here that it's basically how you look at it. It's basically got a lot to do with awareness, preparedness. I think everyone has brought in a perfectly valid points over here. Shafi, do you want to add to this? I wanted to hear your point of view as well. Shafi, are you here? No, I don't think Shafi is here.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Can you hear
Oh,
me now,
Shafi,
right?
sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
the last question.
Definitely, I would.
You heard the question, right?
Yeah,
So
I heard it.
yeah.
I would like to resonate some of the statement made by our panelist. One is like from the AI point of view, definitely AI-driven operations using the agentic AI and agents, which is going to run the whole, systems. There's going to be a system-to-system level communication happening, both attackers and, defenses running at a mission speed. Okay, which will force each and every organization to rethink how they will start the detection response and make decisions accordingly in a real time. So that is going to be another a milestone when it comes to the AI-driven operations. The second thing is considering the increasing geopolitical situations, okay, considering the 5 to 10 years, uh, there's going to be a thin line between the cyber crime and the cyber attack, okay, or the state activity, with more targets coming towards the critical infrastructure and supply chains, because this could lead a severe disruption in services. The last one is, which we are already seeing, is that regulators will tighten some, regulators globally will tighten some controls, pushing companies towards strict accountabilities in data when it comes to the cyber resilience, responsible AI, as well as incident reporting. So this might get even more tighter.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we've had a very, very, very interesting and a vibrant discussion. Everyone has had really solid points to contribute. Now, I had mentioned at the beginning of the panel discussion that there would be a 5-minute Q&A session for the attendees with the panelists. So we have some questions that some of the attendees have asked the panelists. So the first question is from Nadeem Khan. This is to Hadi. How is CPX managing an exorbitant increase in not only genuine attacks but also false positives as well?
Yeah, it's a good question because what we need to do these days when we come to SOC monitoring, right? We also need to ensure that how do we manage the noise, which we get a lot of. And this is done through continuous development of use cases, of filtering the white noise. We are in an era where we are overwhelmed with intelligence feeds and input coming to us from all directions. It's all about coming and filtering and finding the needle in the haystack. For that, CPX does a few things. We have an outside facing instant response service where we keep an eye on what's happening on our customers, and how we can further refine the use cases to protect them further by mapping adversaries and how are they looking at their tactics. Then we have an internal proactive threat hunting team, which is always on the hunt in terms of looking at what adversaries are putting in place from an attack perspective. This helps in reducing the alert fatigue, and we use multiple AI technologies within CPX as well. There's AI ML based detection and tuning going on. Our SOAR platforms are fully AI enabled. So there's a lot of capabilities which we have. I don't want to make it a sales pitch in this webinar, but yeah, there's a lot of capability which we have where we monitor the white noise.
Right. Okay. Now there is another question from again from one of the attendees, Ankit Rajpal. Tushar, this is for you. Given the current geopolitical situation, are we becoming more lenient with data sovereignty rules and allowing data to be stored outside the region?
So this is more for a regulated environment, such as banks. We rely on the primary guidance that we receive from our regulators. So Central Bank of the UAE, they have specified guidelines on what data can be allowed outside the UAE, what data can be stored with what type of controls. And without going into the specifics of it, um, I want to quote one really interesting requirement when sometimes data is allowed outside the region or outside UAE. Um, a very interesting requirement reads that even if you are storing data outside UAE, the keys to that data should remain within UAE. So you probably be even if you're sending data outside UAE, the locked data or encrypted data only goes out outside UAE after the requisite approvals, and every approval is granted by the regulator on a case-to-case basis. And there are a stringent set of requirements as to how long it can be done, whether you have to maintain a copy of that data within UAE, what kind of data can go out. So there's a very detailed set of requirements when the regulator allows a regulated entity to send data outside UAE.
Okay, I'm just taking one more last question. This is from the attendee. The name is Rahul Anant Narayana Reddy. This is a question that is open to any one panelist who can take it up. What governance frameworks should companies put in place to safely deploy AI in cybersecurity? And by adopting to NIST AIRMF, can we minimize the risks? Any one panelist can take it up, whoever wishes to answer.
I can go.
I can go. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Anwar.
Who wants? Okay, Anwar. Okay, whoever.
Okay, so I'll just make it short so we can both have some time to talk.
Sure.
When it comes to deploying AI in cybersecurity, governance is critical. So because the risk is not just technical, it's also about operational and ethical. So NIST AI risk management framework is a strong starting point. It provides a structured approach around governance, risk assessment, and continuous monitoring. You also have complementary framework like ISO 27001, which for overall security for emerging AI specific governance that focus on accountability and transparency. Adopting a framework alone is good, but not good enough. In practice, organizations need to focus on three things: clear governance, visibility and control, continuous monitoring, and validation. So to Rahul's question, yes, framework like NIST AI can significantly help reduce risk, but only if you implement as part of an ongoing process tools that you can use, not just one-time compliance exercise. At the end of the day, it's about combining governance with real operational visibility and control.
Right. How did you want to add to that? You wanted to?
Yeah, it's a great answer by Anwar. I just want to maybe share a few words. I mean, frameworks like NIST are very effective as a foundation because they force organizations to think about ownership, right? I'll give you an example. We've seen organizations deploy an AI model in a SOC that worked perfectly fine in testing, but it started acting unpredictably in production because no one was monitoring the model drift or prompt abuse. A NIST-aligned governance model would have required clear ownership of that model, continuous measurement, and post-deployment oversight as well, which would have caught that early. So totally aligned with one where saying that we need to have the governance around the entire AI deployment and then use whatever frameworks we can use, be it NIST or ISO, etc.
Absolutely. I wish we could take up more questions, but we've run out of time. Thank you so much, panelists, for that wonderful discussion and for answering the attendees' questions. That was a really insightful conversation that we had. Now, we now have a very interesting keynote, a very special keynote from Dr. James Blake, VP Global Cyber Resilience Strategy and Consulting Services at Cohesity. Welcome, Dr. James.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
So unfortunately, my video's turned off by the host, so you'll have to look at my picture. So not entirely sure what's going on.
Yeah, I'll just set that right now.
Thank you very much. So I've just got to say, while we're sorting this technical issue out, what a great panel. And in fact, I might even end up repeating some of the topics that have been mentioned. But what I'm going to do is do that from the perspective of a practitioner, and in the fact that at Cohesity, one of the teams that I'm responsible for is, hey, there you go.
Yes.
One of the teams I'm responsible for helps customers when they are attacked. So both in their incident response and ultimately the last line of defense, getting your data back. So obviously we've seen in the last couple of years hundreds of attacks. The vast bulk have been ransomware attacks, criminal attacks, but there is an emerging because of the geopolitical situation, obviously nation state attacks are becoming much more prevalent ever since the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022, where we actually saw the emergence of over 18 different strains of wiper attacks. And there has been this consistent cadence. And obviously, we all know the two largest users of wiper attacks in the world. And it was brought up in one of the comments earlier that we're starting to see an interaction between nation state actors and ransomware. So we've actually seen nation state actors gain access to systems, persistence for espionage purposes, but then hand over that access later to a criminal organization so that they can go through their normal criminal activities of exfiltration and encryption for extortion. And it's a false flag operation. And then obviously things like NotPetya, which looked like a ransomware attack, but actually was a nation state attack. And then the other interesting trend we're seeing is the fact that we've actually got people who work for these nation states that are taking home their tooling from their day job and then running ransomware operations as a kind of sideline in the evenings. So there are a couple of threat actors we track specifically from North Korea that are doing that. So they're actually taking their nation state tooling, those advanced techniques, home and then running ransomware operations on their own as a sideline. So we live in a very, very interesting world at the moment. So one of the things that I see in the cert, because we're obviously alongside customers during their incidents, I just want to reiterate a lot of the points that were made by the great panelists earlier and also His Excellency. And that is the fact that cyber resilience isn't a product. It's not something you can buy. It is an emergent property. It's something you become by doing the right things. And the biggest factor that I see in organizations that are able to handle destructive wiper attacks or ransomware attacks is their level of preparedness. And that really is the foundation of cyber resilience. It is that ability to be ready, to have a shared responsibility between security that investigate the incident or your third-party incident response company or detection and response company. We've had CPX on the call here, making sure that everyone understands their role in that investigation, but then the threat remediation, whether it's through rebuilding or the recovery of backup snapshots and the cleaning, removal of threats, and also the removal of attack surface, whether that exists in people, by retraining the users, in phishing emails that are left in email boxes, group policy objects, registry key changes, Trojanized binaries. All of these things need cleaning up. So IT typically look after that rebuild, remediation, and recovery, and security look after the investigation of the incident, the establishment of root cause, and the vulnerabilities that were exploited. But in a lot of organizations that I deal with, there is no shared responsibility model. The handoffs are not really well defined, and they start inventing these in the middle of an incident, and things get lost and attack surface and threats get reintroduced into a production environment. So it's not unusual for me to see organizations, even though they've got a backup, even though the backup was immutable and vaulted, being unable to recover within the impact tolerances that the business and customers expect because they haven't built the right handoffs, the right processes, the right RACI model between all of the various people that are involved. And that's security to investigate, the eradication and recovery by the IT team, But then it's also line of business in terms of signing off the repatriation of systems back into production. So this preparedness is really, really, really important. The other thing that we're seeing, and some of them were brought up earlier, the mechanisms by which attacks are happening. So by far, the most common techniques that we're seeing is identity-based exploitation, whether that is through adversary in the middle attacks, where they are proxying access to multi-factor authentication and SSO, MFA fatigue, where they're constantly spamming Okta until one of your users just clicks yes to shut your machine up. We're also seeing the stealing of credentials from browsers through browser vulnerabilities. And then also there's the social engineering aspects and SIM swapping, which we've seen in some large-scale attacks recently. So this has meant that identity has become a really big factor, and it's actually 24% of the attacks that we've seen out of the hundreds of attacks we've dealt with have come in through identity. And once they have identity, they've pierced through your organization with a valid identity, and they're living off the land. Malware is not that common in ransomware attacks these days. And if it is used in nation state attacks, it tends to be 0 days that we have no awareness of. So the challenge we have is we need to protect those identities, and we need to be able to detect those living off the land attacks. And one of the comments that was made earlier was false positives. You know, I built my consulting team over 91 SOCs for some of the largest organizations in the world, the largest tech company, the largest software company, the largest retail company. And false positives are a continuing problem. And AI is helping us, you know, with the classification and the triage out of those, but there's still a problem. And when you add valid IT operations and the ability to detect what is a valid IT operation from what is potentially malicious, you add a lot to that information flowing into the security operations center. So it's really important that we're able to hunt for those indicators of compromise in a structured way and filter out what is valid from what is invalid. The other thing that we're seeing in a trend in attack is the targeting of vulnerabilities. This is by far the most common attack mechanism to get into organizations. Over a third of the attacks that we deal with come in through vulnerabilities. So we have a Microsoft Patch Tuesday. They are now in Exchange or core operating system. And within a day, we are seeing that being reverse engineered using AI-powered disassembly tools so that they can understand the vulnerability, even if it's not published. They are building the exploits for those and putting them into the ransomware as a service platforms and scanning for those vulnerable systems within a day. Now, I don't know about you. I've never worked for an organization in my 30 years that can patch in a day. And there's inherent risk in patching in a day. And this means that all organizations now have attack surface. And then once they're getting in, they are evading controls. So every single one of my customers who've had their data encrypted has had up-to-date EDR. It doesn't matter the vendor, whether it's SentinelOne, whether it's CrowdStrike, whether it's Palo Alto, whether it's Cisco, whether it's Windows Defender. All of them have up-to-date licensed EDR. EDR and XDR evasion is now commonplace in every ransomware as a service platforms we see. There's over 8 different mechanisms, but the most common one is using a vulnerable loadable kernel module for Linux or a vulnerable device driver in Windows. And they use that vulnerability in the edge system to gain that initial access to deploy the vulnerable device driver, and then that device driver is used to blind the EDR solution. And once they're there, they start to pivot to identities. Once they've got an identity, they can exfiltrate your data and create a group policy object that distributes, they're living off the land now, distributes the encryptor out to the endpoint and detonates it. So I've just laid out the current threat landscape that we live in. And then also we've got more sophisticated attacks coming from the nation state. So I dealt with one in the Middle East, a very large attack on a oil company that deleted over 35,000 servers. And one of the challenges we had there, when we defined minimum viable company, we didn't think about the foundational systems that could be impacted. We concentrated on getting oil out of the ground and retail operations. Couldn't get access to the building because the door access control systems had been wiped. No one had considered that to be a business critical system. Communications were down or compromised. No phones, no email, no CMDB, no SIM, no ticketing system and collaboration system. So we need to, in these kind of attacks, especially nation state attacks, rebuild trust systematically. Trust in the firmware, trust in the network, trust in the hypervisor, trust in DNS, trust in your identity and access management system. And if you bring Windows Active Directory up to have to authenticate into any of these response systems, you've already lost. You've brought back the biggest persistence mechanism there is. So having break glass authentication that requires you to know that is trusted and could be there without bringing up compromised systems. So, this is giving you a bit of a flavor of what we're seeing in the attacks. Now, what are we seeing in the customers that have the best resiliency, the ones that can rebuild their systems and recover to a secure state within hours, not within days, weeks, and months? Well, the first thing is, it was mentioned earlier, drills, not tabletops, drills. Having the ability to clone a production environment, mask the production data. The backup platform's great for this, by the way. But then get your pen testers or purple team to attack it full bore, get access, encrypt the data, exfiltrate the data, then go through your response process. Go through, did you detect it? Did you triage it properly? Are the handoffs between security and IT sufficient? Did you remediate the vulnerabilities? Did you remove all the threat artifacts? And this gives you a number of things. The first thing is it builds muscle memory. It tests your processes. And then also it allows you to do continual improvement by identifying the people that need mentorships, the processes that need improvement, and then also the technology that requires reconfiguration or more resources to be able to perform to the expectations that the organization has. So drills, fundamentally one of the best things you can do. And then one final thing I'll leave you with, I spent 30 years in incident response and running security operations, for instance, at JP Morgan Chase. And the one thing I've learned is people underutilize their data management platform. It is a resource that has already got snapshots of the file system of every single system in your business that is being backed up. Logs that never make it into the SIM sit on the endpoint. We have an ability to hunt for IOCs and also malware and stand systems up for vulnerability scanning that isn't impacted by defense evasion or the containment stages we stay. Very difficult to do remote forensics. So regardless of which vendor you use as a data management platform, make sure your security operations team understand these response use cases, these investigation and remediation capabilities that are in your data management platform. After all, your CIO has already done the hard work. They've put the data in it and they've paid for it. And when you look at those use cases, there are actually only 2 use cases in recovery, getting your data back after it's been deleted or encrypted. 2 use cases there. If we look at the investigation stage and we look at the eradication stage, there are 56 use cases where security operations teams can leverage the backup platform. So I plead with you all, if you're in a security operations center or you're a CISO, have a word with your backup admin and get access to that platform and unlock some of that data that's already been paid for and is already sitting there just waiting to be used.
Right. Dr. James, that was video. Start my video. Start my video. The icing. Interesting conclusion. You rounded it out very well. Thank you for those insights. It was really a pleasure listening to you. We will now have a quiz to test your knowledge on cybersecurity and cyber threats. I would request you all to take 2 minutes to complete the quiz that you will see on screen. 10 lucky winners will receive exciting gifts, so make sure you participate. I hope you can all see the quiz on the screen. The first question is, what is the primary security risk associated with large language models in enterprise environments? So is your answer hardware incompatibility, prompt injection attacks, network latency, or data compression errors? The next question is easier. Which concept best describes verifying every user and device before granting access, regardless of location? Is it perimeter security? Is it defense in depth, zero trust architecture, or network segmentation? I think this is something that everyone can answer. This is fairly easy. The next question is, what is the main purpose of extended detection and response? Is it encrypting sensitive data? Is it integrating and correlating security data across multiple layers? Is it replacing firewalls or managing physical security systems? I think everyone knows the answer to this one as well. The next question is, which attack specifically targets the software supply chain? Is it phishing? Is it man in the middle? Is it dependency injection attack via compromised libraries? Or is it brute force attack? The next question is, what is a key risk of misfigured cloud environments? Is it increased CPU usage? Is it unauthorized data exposure, reduced storage capacity, or slower backups? The next question is, what distinguishes ransomware as a service, or RAS, from traditional ransomware? It targets mobile devices. It is distributed through open source platforms only. It allows non-technical actors to launch attacks using rented tools, or it cannot encrypt data. Next one is, which technique is commonly used to bypass multi-factor authentication, or MFA? Is it data hashing? Is it token replay or session hijacking? Is it disk encryption or firewall tunneling? Well, the 8th question is, what is the primary function of a security information and event management SIEM system? This is quite simple. I think it is prevent malware execution. Is it aggregate and analyze security logs in real time? Is it replace antivirus software? Or is it manage user passwords? The next question is, which emerging threat involves attackers subtly altering input data to deceive machine learning models? Is it cross-site scripting, adversarial attacks, DNS spoofing, or rootkit injection? Now, the last question is, what is the key benefit of implementing network segmentation? Is it faster internet speed, reduced hardware costs, limiting lateral movement within a network, or eliminating malware entirely? I'm sure everyone knows the answer to this one as well. These are a fair set of fairly simple questions. Look out, winners. We will reach out to you. You will get some very interesting, exciting gifts as well. So as we come to the end of today's webinar, I would like to thank our speakers and participants for their valuable insights and contributions. A special thank you to the UAE Cybersecurity Council for supporting this initiative. Thank you also to our sponsors, headline partner Cohesity, supporting partners Sysdig and Delinea. Without their support, this event would not have been possible. Today's discussions have reinforced an important message that cybersecurity is a shared responsibility, and our strength lies in working together, learning from one another, and staying vigilant in an ever-evolving world. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice day.